Welcome to Real to the T, where the real gets realer, the tea gets hotter, and the motivation hits harder than your favorite espresso martini. Hosted by Amanda Rupley, top 1% realtor, best-selling author, speaker, and founder of Aspire Realty Group. This show is your VIP pass to the chaos, comedy, and candid truth behind real estate, pop culture, and life as a boss mom building an empire. From wild closings to headline-sparking hot takes, and that final sprinkle of inspiration you didn't know you needed. Nothing's filtered and nothing's off limits. So buckle up. It's time for Real to the T.
Behind every top producing realtor, there's usually a secret weapon. And today, mine is stepping up to the mic. He's the guy who coaches, he guides, and keeps some of the best agents in the DFW market at the top of their game. Welcome back to Real to the T, the show where real estate gets real, pop culture gets messy, and we don't gatekeep the good stuff. I'm Amanda, your brutally honest bestie behind the mic, but this podcast, it's not just about real estate. It is about real life. If it's on my mind, it's on the mic. Today's guest is fun. He is someone who not only understands the business inside and out, but also the people who drive it. Jared Fleischer is not only the senior sales manager for Compass, North Dallas, and Frisco, but he's also my personal sales manager. He's been licensed in Texas for 19 years and has spent the last decade in leadership, supporting, mentoring, and helping agents grow businesses that truly last. From sales to operations, finance, recruiting, and retention, Jared has worn every hat in the real estate world. But beyond the resume, Jared is passionate about culture, community, and helping people thrive. He's a proud husband, a dad to twin boys, and one of the most supportive leaders I've ever known. Jared, I'm so happy to have you.
Well, thank you. It's exciting to be here.
I know.
This is great. I love this.
It's just like we're in the office chatting.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What a perfect way.
But we're dishing all the tea.
We're dishing all the tea, exactly. You just came home from a sabbatical.
I did.
When I say home, like meaning back to Compass
Back to
home.
work, yes. Yeah. Back to work home.
Yeah, like that's really great that Compass gives you an opportunity to take a month off when you hit a certain amount of time with them.
It's amazing. I remember when I was interviewing for the job with Compass in early 2020, and the recruiter told me about the sabbatical, and I thought, well, that can't be a thing.
Right. You're like, wait, do I get paid?
Right. And then he was like, no, I'm serious. And so I said, well, I mean, what are the odds I'm still there in 5 years? Who knows?
Yeah.
So then my 5 years came this year, and then I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? Like, what's the plan for the summer? And I wish I could say it was, filled with amazing Eastern European trips and all this. But
like everybody else in our office?
Right. But I took a family vacation, got some time to decompress, spent time with my kids over the summer, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They're kind of at an age where they still kind of like to be around us, but I think we're close to the point where maybe we're more of a nuisance than we are a help.
Listen, it comes back around eventually.
Yeah. I know,
think.
like hopefully, right? Like hopefully
Yeah.
at some point. So yeah, it was awesome. It was great to get that break, but I was excited to come back to the office and, see all my colleagues and friends and kind of hear what was going on. So
yeah, I remember when you first were telling us.
I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, because the way that you said it, you were like, so I have some news. And I literally went, like, wait, don't say it. You're not leaving, are you? Yeah. And you pulled me aside afterwards and you were like, thank you for that. That was really cool.
Yeah, that felt great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sometimes I gave a couple of months early notice just because sometimes it takes a while for the message to resonate when you have several hundred people in an office as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you're in the office every day with your door always open, which I do appreciate that a lot about you, is that you do have a very open door policy. I know I've laughed. I have cried.
All the emotions.
I have all of the emotions in your office. But I've never, ever been in a position where I felt like you were trying to rush me out the door, or that you didn't have the time, or that you didn't care. That is a big quality to have in this industry, especially because it really is full of emotions. I mean, we're constantly, you never know what day you're going to get.
Right.
Right. You could have 10 things in escrow and the next day wake up and all of them have fallen out, or you can have a client that absolutely loves you and is like singing your praises, but then the very next day you're the devil and they're posting all over social media about how you're a psycho.
I know that's crazy that's become a thing. But I mean, to your point, I look at it like, as so many times where you're playing this counselor, therapist role to multiple different clients across multiple different transactions with different vendors. You got title companies and mortgage companies, and then you've got contractors who are helping you do things. And so you're playing this role and you're dealing with people, right? It's human emotion.
Yeah.
And so I look at it from my perspective is it's the same for me, just a different aspect. It's the aspect of trying to, whether it's just be a sounding board, to just listen, let people vent, talk through situations. That's kind of how I view my role from that perspective. And so I try to be that, that sounding board for agents to be able to come in and just whatever it is, right? You got to come in and gripe for 15 minutes. You got to come in and cry. You got to come in and laugh. You're looking for something. I just want to be whatever it is that kind of propels you to be able to move forward.
So that's a lot to have to take on, though, because when you're having to receive that type of energy all the time, you're also having to output that energy all the time. So what do you do to like decompress and fill your cup again?
Oh, it's a good question. That's a really, that's a tough one to think about. I guess for me, I've been around long enough that I think when I leave the office, I'm able to leave it there. I'm able to kind of separate the two. When I first got into leadership in this industry, I was always very nervous about what happens if I'm not available. Like, what happens if I don't answer my phone? What happens if I don't respond to this text message or email right away? They're going to think I'm unavailable. They're going to think that I'm not dependable, reliable. And so that kind of was a big thing of anxiety for me.
And they're going to move on to the next, right?
Right. They're going to start talking badly about me behind, to other agents. And so I've always really prided myself on my availability to be there for agents. But as I've gotten deeper in my career, it doesn't mean I'm not available. I'm able to kind of, for me, I need to be able to have a separation where I know after hours things are important. I know your business doesn't run 9 to 5. It runs on the weekends. So I try to ensure that I am available, but I also am able to kind of leave and just separate that and not think about, on my drive home, sure, I'm thinking about situations, but I really just try to leave that. I keep hitting my microphone.
I try to adjust it however you need.
I try to leave
whatever you're comfortable with,
like work stuff there. So, when I get home, it's just, being with my kids and hearing about their day, just the normal family stuff, right? And as my kids are getting bigger and older, there's a lot more, they're more communicative with us. They tell us what's happening. They're going through the full scale of emotions. My boys are getting close to teenagehood. So there's all that to deal with. Yeah. So,
do they have the girls chasing them yet?
I don't think if they were, they wouldn't say.
Yeah. How old are they?
They're going to be 12.
Oh, yeah.
November.
It's coming.
So we're at the point where, I'm constantly telling them how bad they smell. Like, put deodorant on.
Oh, my gosh.
Nobody wants to be around BO.
Seriously. I don't know what it is about that age in particular, but I remember very distinctly, I was like, something is dead in my son's room. It was brutal. And I'm like, what happened to this sweet, good-looking kid that wanted gel in his hair? And now, he would walk outside and come in and smell like the entire football team had just walked in.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. Although now we're on the opposite spectrum where he over-colognes.
Okay, right. Nice. You got to love that. A little too much Dracar Noir.
I'm like, oh, buddy.
Imagine having two of them in a room. My kids still share a room.
Yeah.
And so in their doors always closed, right? I'm even to the point now where I used to just walk in, but now I'm trying to be respectful and I knock. But I open, I'm like, oh my God, it smells like feet in here, and it's just, and then it's asking, when was the last time you took a shower?
Yeah.
Have you changed your clothes? Have you even brushed your teeth? So, but yeah, that for me, that's really just probably my main source of just an ability to decompress is just recognizing that I need to be present with them. And there's a lot that they're going through. And so just I try to be available at the office, I need to be available at home too.
Sure.
So.
That's a really good piece of advice. And we often talk on this show in particular about this journey that I'm on about setting boundaries. Which is really difficult because as you touched on earlier, when you're in real estate, you are expected to respond promptly. not only by the expectations that there's so much to choose from as far as realtors in the area. I think there's 60,000
Yes.
licensed realtors in Dallas-Fort Worth, right? And so when you're particularly a top producer and you're constantly, really working your business as a full-time business, there's this perception that if you don't respond, they're going to move on to the next person, right?
Right.
On the flip side, literally in our contracts, it says time is of the essence is the clause. You must respond. And they even put in some legislation this year that time is of the essence actually means that you must respond within 2 days.
Correct.
To all parties.
Correct.
So if a realtor reaches out to me asking about what buyer agent compensation is being offered, or, if they had a question regarding seller's disclosure or anything like that, I must, even if I'm not in a transaction with them, I must respond within 2 days.
Right.
Isn't that wild?
It is.
I think it's amazing to spell it out, though.
It is. And I think it feels like that's kind of a lost part of this business is collaboration, communication. We've become so
leaving feedback.
Yeah. All the stuff, right? Like we're in this industry. Everybody's got their separate whys and their reasons, and they've got their clients, and, they're doing all they can to, support them, advise them, all those things. But there's this collaborative part of this, right? I don't know what the percentage is, but I think nationally, consumers 90% of the time have an agent. So that goes to tell you there's 4 million houses transacted in 2024, and we're kind of on pace to do the same thing this year nationally. 90% of those, there's going to be an agent on both sides, right? And so that collaborative part, that ability to communicate really well, sometimes gets lost. It becomes combative. And I get it. You have tense situations. There's nothing wrong with hard negotiations. But I think if, us as an industry and everybody involved would kind of boil it down to its most elementary principle from a business perspective, like we all just need to be good communicators, good collaborators, and some deals work, some deals don't. But
and not always assume that everybody's an asshole on the other side.
Right. Yeah.
That's, in my opinion, that has been one of the toughest things that I have personally been dealing with this year in particular, is how ugly the other side of the transaction has been lately.
Start, right?
Just from the start. Before you even get into a negotiation, it's just been very bizarre. And I actually, when we had dinner with Brian, who happens to be one of our top leadership here in North Texas, and he was like, Amanda, think about it. 71% of agents, even top agents that have been producing forever, have not eaten this year because they haven't sold a single transaction.
Wow.
And I'm like, when you put it in that perspective, because, I've done, I think we're at 50 transactions or something this year within our team. And, when you've done that, it's hard. Now, that's everything, including leases too, right? But it's hard to remember that that's the norm. Right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so then
absolutely.
I'm like, I try to have more empathy. And so I think I'm trying to overcompensate a little bit more, because I feel like I'm pretty nice and easygoing. I am definitely a tiger. I will fight to the tooth and nail. You've seen it.
Sure.
If I have to.
Yeah.
But that's not where I want to start by any means. You know what I mean? I definitely want to be best friends on the other side of the transaction. I want it to be a good collaborative aspect from start to finish. I want my clients to love me, but I want the agent on the other side to love me too.
Absolutely, because they can be the gatekeeper to keeping it together or not.
For sure.
So many times, the party on the other end, so the buyer, the seller, is relying on their agent, right, to pass this information along. And it may not always be done in the best manner, or it may, again, to be, combative or something like that. And they may not know. So then you have the other representative agent telling them what's coming from your side. And so that's why I just believe that not, across the board, but I think as an industry, we've lost a little perspective on how important those relationships are internally, and not just within your own organization, but outside your organization as well. It's so important.
Pick up the phone and have a quick conversation. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes,
no,
but just let people hear the inflection in your voice. Not everything has to be a text or an email.
Right.
I'm in a transaction, actually, we're closing today, and I could tell that there was going to be a little bit of tension regarding a situation where we found out that the roof is shot and it needs to be replaced. And the position from the buyer's agent who happens to also be related, from the seller's agent who happens to be related to the seller was, well, we've priced it with that in mind. I'm like, well, that's great, but they still have to obtain insurance and it's not insurable. So we need to work through this. And so instead of conveying this information, first off, I took my time to really price out, different options on roofing and educated my clients on sort of the expectation and what could happen, what couldn't happen, find out their comfort level. And then instead of just sending that information over on an amendment requesting repairs for, a substantial credit, I picked up the phone and I called the agent. I was like, hey, I just want you to know this is what happened. This is why we had to do these things. We cannot get insurance on it. We sent the adjuster out. They're not going to approve it. Here are the 4 quotes that I had gotten on roofers. This is the one we're comfortable going with at the better, at the best pricing. And he was like, first off, thank you.
Right.
This helps a lot. I said, I just wanted you to know we weren't just throwing down a number. There was a very methodical aspect on how we came to this. And we were able to work it out, and then got the roof replaced and made everybody comfortable, got the insurance that was needed. But he very much appreciated the fact that I picked up the phone and talked him through it.
It disarms people.
Right.
Right. It's an immediate, I think most of us have a defense mechanism kind of built in, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like our shield, we want stuff to bounce off of it. So we have a canned response for certain things. But when you can just do that, professional to professional with the intent, hey, the intent is to not try to take advantage of anybody here. It's to not cause any more problem. We're being informative, telling you where we are, why we're here, and let's try to find a solution so both parties feel good about moving forward. And that's a great perspective to take, but too often it's kind of lost, like you said, through text messages or just an unwillingness to even engage.
For sure.
So,
and that's a big thing. And I think that while we're in a difficult market right now, I do think that we're going to see those that can barrel through it are going to be the ones that are really going to be in a great position when things transition, right. God willing. And the next,
they will.
They will. They will.
The seasons of real estate.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. But I really do think that that's, these are those tough moments that are making us stronger. And when you have the grit to get through it and the determination to get through it, and you're using these hard circumstances to improve and learn better in your craft, it's like the creme rises to the crop, right? At the top, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it becomes like a catalog for you, right? So you have these situations that you incur over the course of your career and you Rolodex them, right? And so then you have this situation that maybe occurs again and you can look back at that and think, what went well during this? I handled this way and it was productive, or maybe this is what happened the last time this happened and the circumstance maybe wasn't the result I wanted. So I'm going to maybe approach it differently, or I'm going to receive the information differently if you're on the other end.
Yeah.
So that's the great part about this is that you can learn something from every experience representing, a buyer or seller, every transaction you have. And they become a building block and an educational tool moving forward. And it's not just about market conditions or homes. I mean, it's really about the dichotomy of people, So it's great to do that.
And for those that really haven't dug into, I love the DISC assessment. I am able to determine who I'm talking to, when, how, why, and I can provide the information based on where they fall on that assessment, whether they're a D, an IS, whatever the case is.
Right.
I'm a high I. You probably know that. But I also have some D and S qualities. I can be very sensitive. I can be extremely dominant. I'm certainly not the analytical one. I am not a C at all. Yeah, I'm not a C at all. I'm 75% on the DISC assessment. But, I had another situation where unfortunately, I was on the listing side and the agent needed to terminate. I did everything I could to save it. But my reaction to her when we couldn't save it, she actually cried. And she was like, I lost so much sleep last night knowing I had to make this call this morning.
Yeah.
And she was like, thank you for responding the way that you have. And I said, listen, I can be an asshole all day long. But honestly, what is that going to do? Nothing. You just lost sleep. over having to make this phone call. You can't control what you can't control. I can't control what I can control. I can tell you, here's the rebuttal, but if your buyers aren't comfortable with it and you can't get them comfortable with it, that's all you can do, know? And I would just much rather not be reactive in this situation. I need to get to work and use that energy for my clients. And guess what? I wound up writing an offer, and sure enough, she was the listing agent.
There you go.
And this was a unicorn. They wound up in a multiple offer situation, and guess whose offer won? Because she understood how I handled the transaction.
Yep. I mean, it's people, right? And I often say this is a thankless business, and sometimes just a little bit of extra effort, whether it's with an agent, a client, just that little bit goes so far. I mean, it really means so much to people because we are in this pace where we just move on to the next. Sometimes, we tend to get more emotional about the things that don't work out.
Yeah.
But when
it's easy to do so.
It's easy, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're investing so much of yourself into this, right? I mean, your time, your the whole package of it. But when you can have that moment with somebody where, you can be understanding in that regard, or you thank somebody just like, hey, thank you. Like I sent a message recently to an agent from another firm because we had gotten great feedback from an agent in our office about working with her. And it wasn't a message to try to get this person to come over. Sure. It wasn't anything other than, hey, I just wanted to tell you, like the message that I got from, this agent working with you was amazing. And I know sometimes you don't get, a thank you from people like me, but I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to collaborate. I heard it went so well for both of our clients, and she responded back, a couple days later, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all busy, but she said, this meant a lot to me. At the time I saw it and I kind of put a smile on my face. I didn't respond immediately, but thank you so much for sending this. It means a lot. And it's just little things like that, right? That just can go so far. And from your perspective, doing that, got your client a win on another transaction with her. Yeah.
And it's, I think the centralized aspect of it that we keep just touching on is that this really is a relational business. It is, if you can chase that versus the paycheck, I feel like the rest of it follows.
It does.
And I tell my team that all the time. I'm like, listen, it is not lost on me that we all need to eat. Okay. We all need to feed our families. And I fully understand that. But if we are so focused on that bottom dollar, your business reflects that. Whereas if we are more focused on serving others and building the relationships and that, all of that follows. I mean, I've been in such a great position where I've never had to pay for leads. I know Carrie Himmel's another one. I mean, her business has been 100% referral based because of us having the similarity, in those are our views that we hold our business to the forefront of, right? I will say that having that little extra step that you provide to us as agents is something that I really deeply, deeply appreciate. Because not only do you bring the fun and the energy and the open door policy, but you literally show up to every meeting with like raw data to help equip us to go out and have these tough conversations with our sellers and have these conversations with our buyers of how we can get creative on structuring an offer and things like that. A lot of my understanding, allegedly, as we like to say, is that there are other sales managers in the industry, not necessarily with our brokerage, but in other brokerages where that is a missing element. They're not being equipped with that information. Their sales meetings basically go in and it's all rah, 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 cheerlead, hype everybody up, which I will say we do have some of that also. But the fact that we have real tangible information, I love that you're a little bit of you're definitely, you have some C tendencies. You're analytical.
I do. I'm very, my wife would agree that I'm over analytical. She's the left brain. I'm the right brain. My whole thought process on that, I remember being an agent, I'm still licensed obviously, but when I would go to sales meetings in the office I was a part of, and I was fortunate over the early part of my career to have some really great sales managers and mentors, which, kind of played a role in where I am today. But I really appreciated, one, the fact that they wanted to try to provide something valuable, because it is hard to come up with content sometimes, when you're having these meetings frequently or you kind of just have the same stuff regurgitating. you're trying to come up with things that agents are going to find value in. And I often tell agents, I'm not sitting at somebody's kitchen table across from them negotiating contracts. I'm not trying to give them information on what's best to prepare their home to sell.
Yeah.
I try to find areas where I can input myself in an agent's business to either give them a perspective they, will agree with, maybe they didn't have, or just something that they'll look at and say, wow, I can use this, or that was great to hear and understand better. So that's my kind of thought process when I'm going into planning for meetings is I want people to come. I want it to be a good use of their time. Of course, I want to recognize everybody and I want them to recognize each other. But that's really kind of my focus on that is I just want it to be valuable because, getting up, coming to meetings and you're like, oh, it's the same crap I'm going to hear,
Yeah.
And listen, I'm guilty of that sometimes. There's times where we have our meetings on Tuesdays and at Monday night, I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. And I'm like, I already talked about
You're
this.
crash coursing it.
Yeah, right. So I kind of wing it sometimes, but that's, I try to just do the whole thing. I want to make it fun. I try to infuse a little bit of humor in it. I'm fairly self-deprecating at times. But yeah, I think by and large, that's why we really have good attendance at our meetings. And we seem to have been carried that momentum through the last couple of years of this office we have. And so, that's my...
Well, I will say as an agent that has attended I missed my first one last week.
You're forgiven for this one.
Since we've merged the offices. But I think that's the only one I've missed, actually.
It's probably other than maybe being out of town.
Yeah.
I don't even...
Every meeting I've been to, I've walked away with something.
When your team's always front row too, which I love. You're like right there and you're like, we're here, we're sitting up front, we're not sitting in the back.
No.
Yeah, I love
Why
that.
would we hide?
Yeah, well, it's, most people, it's rare that people actually want to be like up front and be interactive so much as like, well, I'm just going to kind of stand around. I can't tell you how many people I see their head popping around the corner. I'm like,
yeah. It's funny because I did notice one of the agents that was in the office had actually posted a photo of the sales meeting and the front row was empty because our team wasn't there. And I was like, oh, dude. But I also want to lead by example. And so I feel like I'm teaching my team not to be afraid to be front and center.
Right.
I think I told you the very first time we met, my whole purpose is I want to make a ripple in this industry.
Yes.
I want to, and I don't know what that ripple stands for. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's me being a sales manager one day or a mentor to other agents that reach out. I want to give back, and that is sort of my way of giving back because I've been so blessed by this industry that I think it's important to not be afraid to be front and center.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think, it shows too, because it reverberates kind of with your team as well, right? So it shows your leadership there, your, willingness to kind of be front and center. You buy into everything, that the organization does. I mean, you're always the first cheerleader to support, like, we're going to do this. Or if it's something that maybe doesn't align to voice your opinion. But we need that, right? We need to hear from the people we serve, which is the agents, on what's best for them. We may think we know what's best, from an executive team down to local leadership, but we're not always right. We're not, like I said, we're not the ones that are doing the day-to-day work with clients and the operational part of it. We may have something in our mind that sounds great on paper and then it gets executed and we're like, yeah, it's kind of a miss. That's not going to work. So,
but I love that Compass really does hold the collaborate without ego to the forefront. I mean, Robert,
Absolutely.
As an example, it's literally from the top down. I mean, the fact that he came and was a guest on my show.
I mean, how many CEOs of Fortune 500 companies do people have? Do their employees have their number in their cell phone?
I know.
And can call them on a Saturday.
I know. And I have.
Yeah.
A few times.
Right.
And then he called me. He actually called me on a Sunday and he was like, hey, I of course panicked. I might have had a couple of champagnes. We were doing Sunday Fun Day at the pool.
Nice.
And then his number popped up and my husband was like, uh-oh. Like, what did you do?
I know, right?
I'm like, I don't know, and I answered and he's like, hey, Amanda, it's Robert. I'm like, I know who this is.
Yeah.
He's like, I just wanted to congratulate you because I get a list every week of the top agents on YouTube and you were in the top 10 nationally.
Awesome.
And I was like, I was?
That's
we had just launched Real to the T.
Yeah.
But just the fact that he pays attention to that kind of stuff was really cool,
I remember my first anniversary with Compass. I got this call. It was a weekend, and I got this call from this New York number. And we get solicited by so many people, and I was like, "Yeah, nope." And then there was a voice message, and I listened to it, and it was Robert, and I didn't have his number in my phone. I guess for the first year, I started during COVID, so it was a weird time.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I just missed a call from the CEO of the company congratulating me. I was like, I can't just call him back. So I sent him a message thanking him, saying, I'm so sorry I missed this call, and thanking him for the congratulations. But that's what makes the organization and any organization successful, is when you have the leadership and ownership of your organization like pour into their people.
Right.
And know, I mean, their availability, like we talked about, like that's your best ability, their availability and willingness to engage, to make sure it's a good environment and you're getting what you need is, I mean, it's critical for success.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of brokerages out there.
Absolutely.
And I sit with, a lot of agents from various brokerages. And one of the things that they always say is that when they've had a Compass agent on the other side, it's always been a really positive scenario. I'm like, I love to hear that, because that's what I believe. I mean, obviously.
That's what we're striving for.
Right.
Too, right.
For sure. It definitely comes from the top down. And I did tell Robert on the show, I said, I actually referenced you by name. I referenced, Brian by name and some of the other ones. And I'm like, these are the people that have followed you into this environment because of what you've started, and it does trickle down. And so it inspires agents like us,
Absolutely.
right, to also follow suit. And I really appreciate that. But you've been with a lot of brokerages over the years, right?
Well, I've been with if total count 3, but we'll really call
even
it,
when you were practicing real estate?
Correct.
Okay.
We'll really call it 2 because I spent my early years as an agent. I was with another local brokerage, and I mean, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't say lucked into this industry, but
I mean, most of us have.
It's not something that I was like, I can't wait to be in the real estate industry when I'm, hit a certain age. It kind of just transitioned into it. But the place I was at just wasn't a good fit for me. It was a good start. And then I was with a local, very well prominent local brand. I mean, it was Ebby Halliday is who I was with for 13 years. And I like to say I kind of grew up professionally in that organization. It did a lot for me to help develop me professionally, personally, had some amazing relationships that I continue to carry to this day.
Some of which have followed you.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I followed, I mean, there's a whole kind of colleagues that, I have here as well as agents also, but like within our team, we have several that came from there. But, so I've been fortunate to have, like I said, some really great mentors and leaders that have set a great example for me and helped me utilize some of their best characteristics in how I approach my role. And then when I came to Compass 5.5 years ago, it was kind of the culmination of a point in my career where I was looking for something a little bit different. I was looking for some opportunity to grow. And I saw this organization from afar. It was a competitor that had come into the market. And of course,
very edgy.
Oh, it was,
and modern.
Oh, we refer to it
disruptor
at our brokerage as the evil empire, right? So it was, Darth Vader's coming in. This is, can't remember what that's called. I should know this as a Star Wars fanatic, what it's called. I guess just the Empire. But I was watching. I was like, wow, they're making some real power moves, And of course, the whole, narrative around it was this isn't sustainable. It's just another flash in the pan. It's a disruptor. They're going to go away just like every other one does. This company I'd been with had been in the market for 70 years at the time. And so, but I was watching from afar and I was like, wow, that's, and I know a lot of people across the industry and I'm seeing, this person's joining and then the next day these 2 people are joining and it was just rapid growth. And I thought, if I'm going to be momentum, and I'm like, if I'm going to be a part of something, if I'm searching for an opportunity to be a part of something and grow, why not with an organization that seems like they're all in?
Yeah.
They're pouring everything they can into that. So that's a little bit of how I, got to Compass, but not to take anything away from where I came from because I was really fortunate to have,
You've always said amazing things about your time and your journey with that company.
It was great. I mean, it was, like I said, it's, it was a tried and true brand here. It was a woman-owned company, it started, for anybody to know the history of Ebby Halliday, which ironically isn't her real name. It's a whole funny thing. But if you've ever read her book. But, essentially starting a real estate firm in 1945 in a thing that was dominated by men. And it wasn't even really, brokering wasn't really a thing yet then, right? So the fact that there was that type of strong leadership and it just kind of kept permeating decade after decade after decade, they built this reputation. And I was really fortunate and felt proud to be a part of that because it is kind of an institution in Dallas. And it just hit a point, like I said, in my career where I was ready for the next step. I think we all sometimes hit that point where we maybe feel like we've gone as far as we can.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what led me to Compass. And I haven't looked back. It's been the best career move I've made.
Well, but 19 years in the industry, you definitely know where the skeletons are hidden.
Sure. I mean, we all have our fair share of them, right?
Yeah. What is the juiciest rumor you've ever heard?
Ooh, juiciest rumor. Well, I mean, I think recently, it's hard not to think back on recent memory. I think the juiciest rumor is the whole acquisition rumor that was coming around with our organization and Home Services of America.
Oh, okay. So allegedly,
Correct.
except that the Washington Post did a whole article on it, and they have a pretty significant attorney backing situation. They generally don't write things unless it's been
Right.
fact checked by a lot, but allegedly.
Not
allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
Allegedly.
Right. Yeah, it's a double negative.
Yeah. So allegedly, the rumor is that Compass is acquiring or has been in talks with, I guess is what we need to say.
Talks, I would
Compass
say.
has been in talks of acquiring Home Services of America,
Right.
which includes which brands was it?
Well, Home Services of America, I mean, includes a ton. So it's got they have their whole franchise network, right?
Right.
So they have their whole Berkshire Hathaway franchise. So Home
Yeah.
Services of America is a Berkshire Hathaway company.
Mm-hmm.
And so across their national scope, they've got their franchise network as well as a bunch of large independent companies.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they essentially acquire successful brokerages,
Mm-hmm.
let them operate within their branding, but they operate under that umbrella. So you have local companies like Ebby Halliday that I worked with. You have huge East Coast companies like Long and Foster on the
Okay.
East Coast, Howard Hanna.
Yep.
So you have these huge companies. So from just a total agent count perspective, I think definitely at the time bigger than Compass is, although we're at 33,000 agents nationally and growing. But that was a pretty big, I remember I was on my way back from spring break with my family and I specifically had my phone on Do Not Disturb. We were driving back from our trip and we got into Dallas. It was getting kind of late. We hit some traffic. So I thought, I'll just kind of pop my phone off of Do Not Disturb and see what's happening. And I had this slew of text messages
I remember
from agents in my office.
I think it was the next day we had the office meeting.
Yeah. I think I was just coming back and I had no idea. I mean, I was on vacation. I kind of disconnected. I wasn't watching news. I wasn't really paying attention to the news. So that was a pretty salacious piece of, rumor, I think, in the recent past.
The CEO actually, not our CEO, but the CEO of Home Services or one of their branches, their large branch, had put out a communication stating that this was absolutely not happening.
Right. Well, I mean, what else are they supposed to say?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah.
But so outside of that rumor, or what has been one of the juiciest circumstances that you have been privy to or a part of during your 19 years of
Well, I've got a good one that happened to me.
Okay.
And so it's not a rumor. It was actually like an occurrence that happened. So we'll go back, say 7, 8 years ago, again, not at Compass, at my previous company. And there was an agent that I had hired that, recruited. We brought on a lot of brand new agents at that company and trained and recruited. And, you hit a point sometimes with people where it's just not a good fit, whether it's from their perspective or the brokerage's perspective, sometimes there's just not an alignment there. And so we had made a decision that we were going to move on from this agent. And, that decision fell upon me to notify this person of that. So I did that. And later in the afternoon, this person's significant other showed up to our office and tried to fight me.
What?
Yes, tried to fight me and accused me of assaulting, and the police were called. And so it became this whole situation where the local police department got involved, had to take statements. The HR department of the company got involved. And I'm just thinking to myself,
Why?
how did this happen? Like this, you can't write this. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, real estate agents are independent contractors, right?
Mhm.
It's an at-will work relationship, right? So agents can leave voluntarily, they can come voluntarily, in collaboration with the brokerage. And so, like I said, we just made this decision that, hey, it's probably better off that you find a better opportunity out there. And it turned into me like I don't want to say almost getting arrested, but having to basically
Defend yourself.
defend myself and sit down with a police investigator to investigate what happened. So that one I will never forget, because I just remember sitting down after this was all over thinking, what did I do to contribute to getting to this point? But I realized I didn't do anything. It was just people, crazy people.
Wow.
That one was, interesting.
And I thought that I've had some interesting ones. I mean, I've had to get you involved on a couple of transactions recently that I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm your problem child. But then I've heard of one recently with, my other bestie in the office, as you know, my redheaded bestie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that story.
Spicy.
Oh, yeah, we might be a little. Yeah, we're definitely spicy.
Yeah.
I always tell her she's the strawberry to my blonde.
There you go.
Mhm.
I love it.
Yeah, but my redheaded part can come out also.
I've heard, there's so many different things. If we get into client situations, I guess I had one again. This was in my former company where an agent sold the wrong house.
I'm sorry, what?
An agent, and this was, and to this person's defense, it wasn't here. It was she was an agent in another state prior to moving to Texas. And it was just a little bit different how they did things. And she had a huge investor network of listings. And so there was all these row houses that were essentially, lined up and owned by an investor. And she inadvertently contracted the wrong one with this buyer. And so I don't remember, it's been so long, I don't remember. And these were, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 houses in kind of this lower end section of this urban city.
Sure.
But I'll never forget.
But people just roll up and are knocking on the door like, hey, this is our house.
I'll never forget when she told me, she's like, yeah, in the previous part of my career, I sold the wrong house to somebody. I thought, okay, that's interesting. You hear all sorts of stuff about, the condition of homes being left in and, circumstances happening like that. But that one kind of stood out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
I have one right now. Actually, it was my lake listing where I just got contacted by the buyer's agent that the deed is inaccurate.
Okay.
And I said, oh, I think they're pulling the wrong deed because my clients had actually sold. They had a lot across the way too that they sold privately to a neighbor. Mm-hmm. Apparently, the attorney wrote the paperwork incorrectly and actually deeded the wrong property.
Oh.
So it shows that these buyers now own the lot and not actually the house.
Okay.
So that's a whole nother situation.
Man.
But I mean, I don't have to get involved in it because it had nothing to do with me.
Sure.
But they've had to get the attorney involved, and he's emailing me and just like, I'm just keeping you in the loop. I'm like, great, received, thanks. But I mean, I can't do anything about it. I just stay out of it. I'm like, cool, you guys have it under control. But it's interesting the nuances that go into this industry and how many. First off, it's a testament. Don't try to do things on your own,
mm-hmm.
right? Because had they not done that, we would have had a title company involved. We would have had, the processes along the way to make sure that everything lines up, that title is clear, that
right.
the correct deed is and descriptions are written.
Right.
But it happened.
It does.
Yeah, it does happen.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're dealing with, contracts, right? And it just so happens that the contracts for this type of, asset we have or whatever are just very valuable, right? It's one thing if you're signing a contract like, oh, I'm going to buy, this car or something even lower than that. But when you're talking about real estate, I mean, it's more often than not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of money, but a lot of shit that comes with it. I mean, let's just keep it real.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like I am just a professional shit cleaner. Mm-hmm. I am just constantly cleaning up everybody else's shit all the time. Mm-hmm. But you must feel that way too. I mean, you oversee, how many agents are out of our office?
Oh man, I think now it's probably agents total, probably about 220.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
And that's just out of our office.
Correct.
And how many agents are we DFW
DFW, we're about, so total people, agents, I think we're about 1,050.
Okay.
We have about 1,200 people total if you take into account just unlicensed assistants and stuff like that. Yeah.
But in our office, we're roughly around 200.
About 220, 225 on the agent count.
That's a lot of children to manage.
It is, right?
With a lot of different personalities.
It is. It's like the old adage, herding cats, right? Like it's the old joke in real estate, herding cats is like, trying to herd realtors.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, it's everybody's different, right? I mean, you certainly have personalities that are similar in some regard, operate their businesses in a similar fashion, from a professionalism aspect to their structure internally, having full-time people that handle things, to how they run their teams, how they train their agents, how they collaborate with each other. So you have a lot of overlap there, but every situation can be unique and how people handle it can certainly vary from agent perspective, agent to agent. So, my thoughts on that are, like I said earlier, like one, I need to hear all the information first, because a lot of times I'll take a phone call or it's an email. It's more often a phone call, and then somebody will, the person on the other end will just jump right into it. Like, I know all these people. I don't know all the players on the transaction. So I have to stop them and tell them to slow down. Who do you represent? What's the actual, what's happening? I ask some qualifying questions just to give me an idea of how to best advise, whether it's referring back to a specific provision in a contract or an addendum, whether it's just a strategic in your position. That's what I always try to say. I say, if I was in your position, because, it's not always, I think, the best practice for me to say, you need to do this.
Right.
Like, I don't want it to feel like I'm telling somebody what they do unless really the circumstance really requires it.
Sure.
There's times where it does. But I try to put myself in their position and say, if I were in your position, I might advise to do this. And I think just kind of,
it allows people to hear it better.
Correct. I think it allows, instead of feeling like they're being like dictated to, or if it's not an agreeable response they're looking for, it just says, I'm just saying, this is what I think I would do. And again, if it's a situation that requires like, well, hold on, like, let's stop for a minute. You need to stop doing this or don't do that. But everybody does handle that differently. And so your kind of question about what it's like, I mean, I just try to be what I can be for each person and try to understand that there's no one way to be successful in this business, right? So the way you do business and your team is successful could differ wildly from another team that's successful. Maybe there's a lot of overlap there, but there's some nuances. So I try to adapt my personality and response to those agents, to everybody differently, so they feel supported, heard, whatever it is. So it's challenging. I'm not going to lie. Like,
I'm sure it is, because we are so used to fixing everything, and we have to be 10 steps ahead of everything in this industry, right? But also that brings a lot of very big and bold personalities, a lot of irons in the fire.
Certainly. Absolutely.
I feel like we do a great job in collaborating, particularly in our office. But, there are times too where that must be very challenging.
It can be. I always say, like, not every agent's going to sing Kumbaya with each other.
Right.
And, to your point, there are big personalities. And I think that's what makes a lot of agents really successful too. Not to say you have to be some alpha dominating personality to be successful in this business, but
you have to have thick skin though.
You have to, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Like this, I always say this business isn't for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of, chutzpah, to continue on and to soldier on each day with this sometimes, because it's exhausting. It's draining because you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's, there are a lot of big personalities, and it's just trying to get, everybody, if it's an internal situation, trying to get the people to hear maybe both sides of the perspective. Again, I'm thinking about ways, I said this earlier, I'm thinking about ways to disarm people, because our mechanism is just defense. I think we do that in our
especially in today's climate.
Yeah. And
it is a tough industry.
It is. And we do it in our personal lives too. You know, and nobody likes being either criticized or anything like that. So you're immediately kind of on defense mode. And I try to get to a point where I want them to feel heard. And then I'm providing maybe some unbiased advice or opinion, because I'm not the one that's in the emotional throes of it. Right. I just try
the outside perspective.
Correct. And so that's kind of where I try to put myself in that position.
I definitely have had to call you a couple of times, and in the talk, it was just like, I think I just needed you to
hear.
Just hear. Like, I just needed to be like, rah, because I knew you would get it. And then I like talked myself through the solution and I was like, all right, that's all I needed you to know.
I mean, I'd say probably 70-80%
Yeah.
of the calls I get a lot of times are just that.
Uh-huh.
They're just, you need to be heard, which is a big part of what I feel my role is just I want people to feel validated, feel heard. There's certainly times where, maybe their perspective could use some adjustment or just thoughts from, thinking from a different angle. But most of the time, it's just that. Like the agent, when I get called because there's a situation, I think 9 out of 10 times, the agent knows the answer. They know the response. They're looking for a little bit of validation.
Yeah.
They're looking for some affirmation. And so that's what.
And also to make sure we're not doing anything wrong.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to find themselves, in the principal's office. And, as people say, like, it's funny, I'll message somebody and they'll say, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, no, you didn't do anything wrong,
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't.
Or when Brian Pachulski just throws a random, calendar invite. I used to call all the time, like, what did I do?
I know.
Oh, no, I just thought we could catch up and grab coffee. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now, but this last time, my husband got thrown on it. And my husband's like, why do I have an email invite from Brian Pachulski? I'm like, because he's been asking you to go to dinner for the last 5 years. So finally, he's like, forget it. I'm just going to make it happen.
Just going to do it.
Yeah. It's funny. Okay, well, it's no secret that this industry is really hard right now.
Sure.
Particularly in our market. I mean, nationally, I think, things are a little concerning in regards to, it's just different than what we've been used to. But especially in Dallas, we have officially hit a buyer's market. We now have 7 months of inventory as of last week, I think it was. We've had multiple back-to-back seller markets. And so it was just a matter of time.
Sure.
But of course, the news is saying that the sky is falling and the world is ending and I don't know, Russia's taking over or whatever, right?
Whatever the story of the
day. The story. I don't even watch the news, so I have no idea what the story. That's not true. I watch House and Habit on Instagram.
Okay.
And some other, independent bloggers, and so, but I want to know what's going on with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard stuff, or I want to, you know what I mean? Like I'm very into the transcripts right now of Ghislaine Maxwell.
There was some interesting stuff that came from that.
Allegedly, she's batshit crazy.
Yes, allegedly.
Yeah. Johnny will support me, I feel. Yeah, he'll lawyer up if I get served next.
So yeah.
Okay, but honestly, what advice would you have for agents right now that are really feeling the thick of it, and also for sellers that are feeling the thick of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a couple things there. So, yeah, we came out of this unprecedented market, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
historic. We're never going to see that again.
No, I mean, there was. I like to refer to the post-COVID, 2020, mid-2020 to really the end of 2022, it was like a perfect storm of factors, right? You had this, historic, global pandemic, which changed the way we all think and operate and how we kind of put that into our daily lives. Like where do I want to be? If I'm going to be here, if I'm going to have to be in a place for a long time or not be able to leave, what do I want from that?
Yeah.
Because we didn't know. I mean, we had no clue. We had all these shelter stay-at-home orders. We had no idea how long it was going to last. What if it came back? So you had that immediately right there that was changing homeowners and buyers or just any, people's perspectives of what they wanted in a home.
They were willing to spend more.
They were willing to spend more. Then we had, of course, we had historic low interest rates. And at the time when COVID started, everybody pulled their homes off the market. So even though we were at a point in late 2019, early 2020, when inventory was low-ish, we still had 4 months of inventory. In April of 2020, we had like a week.
Yeah.
Everything fell apart.
Wild.
Right? So you had this just 2-year supercharged window of historic demand, no inventory, exceptionally low interest, historically low interest rates. And so it just created this 2-year phenomena that will never likely repeat.
And I remember very distinctly being so incredibly stressed during that time because I couldn't get anything for buyers. I mean, we were throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking, waiving concessions, waiving inspection.
About like,
oh my gosh.
You tacos for a year or like you saw these crazy things in contracts. Yeah.
I mean, there was one that I saw where they bought them a car. There was another one where they got a golden doodle. I'm like, who the hell is... I don't have a golden doodle to give you.
Yeah, tugging at some heartstrings there, I guess.
By the way, there was a shortage on golden doodles. Otherwise, I probably would have bought them myself just to have them on supply to hand them over too.
The market cap on golden doodles was like several billion.
It was wild. Yeah, it was literally the Wild West of real estate.
It was. So you come out of that, right? So you come out of that and you think, and again, that's what sometimes the consumers are fed through the news, right? Like the sky's falling. This is the worst real estate market in 30 years.
Yeah.
If you take it with a grain of salt and some perspective, it's that we're just coming off of a historic 2-year run. So of course the drop we're going to see in the subsequent, couple of years is going to be massive,
right?
Because we were running at this unprecedented, you can't keep up pace.
I mean, appreciation should never be 30 to 50% year over year.
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
It had to level out. It had to stop.
It had to stop, right?
Yeah.
So where are we finding ourselves now? What I feel like where we're finding ourselves is, back to, pre-COVID market, which we're at a little bit higher inventory rate now. And I don't know off the top of my head the transaction count of, home selling from then to where it is now. But I've kind of preached patience. I've tried to look at the glasses half full perspective of this, and that we have inventory, which is never a bad thing. Sure, it's difficult when you have a bunch of listings and you have clients that are like, why isn't my home selling? Or even why aren't people coming in it? But I think the glass half full perspective is that real estate markets, just like any, tangible market, they're cyclical. Right. So you have highs and lows. You always talk about the peaks and valleys, the ebbs and flows, whatever cliche you want to use. And we're in one of those kind of valleys right now where buyer demand is waned. Interest rates are higher than they were. They're still not crazy high. I mean, I bought my first house almost 20 years ago and we got a 6.5% interest rate, and it was great.
Yeah.
And
when I bought in 2018, I remember ours was 5.5%, and I thought I was going to die at 5.5%.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh no, this is a good rate." I'm like, "Oh really?" They were like, "Yeah, other people are getting 6.5 to 7% at the time."
Yeah. Well, and if my parents, we bought our house, and my parents were like, "Oh man, this is amazing. You got this rate." When we bought our house in 1984, we paid 15, 16%. Yeah. So
crazy.
It's all, it's all comes with perspective. So what I would say to agents now is that, have a little bit of, yes, I know you have the immediate here and now of what you have to serve, satisfy from a client perspective, but also to have a little bit of, eyesight into the long game of this and where we're heading over the next. I always kind of like to play out, what's going to happen, like what's trending, where we're going to play out in the next 6, 12, 18 months. And I think that's going to be in a place where we have inventory. Hopefully, none of us know, hopefully the Fed does make some type of cut. If anything, not so much for the savings that consumers are going to have, but just for consumer confidence. That's really, when the Fed makes a 0.25% rate cut, it doesn't have a massive reverberation in the market in terms of dollars and cents.
Right.
I mean, there is something there, don't get me wrong.
But in action, it does.
But it's an action,
right.
and it just bodes confidence to consumers, like, okay, things are going in this direction. In a time when everything costs more than it ever has, including, home ownership and borrowing money for most people in their lifetime. This is, especially the younger generation, they're like, well, I want a 3% interest rate. Now, you might
not gonna happen again.
Might have missed that, but
you better get a lot of concessions from the seller right now.
Yeah, I mean, that might be another, who knows? I mean, it could be 15 or 20 years or never before that happens again.
Right.
So that's the kind of advice, I try to help give agents, is just a little bit of perspective, understanding the challenges. How can you solve the immediate challenges? We have this, like, in the office, we started this whole virtual tour for listings, trying to get feedback from internally from agents, so you can provide that to sellers. To your point, people not really giving that. So trying to solve the immediate need of how do we transact, and really just how do we serve to keep those opportunities coming. But where are we trending? What am I doing to prep myself for the market that's going to come? Because it's likely going to pivot at some point to a market where the demand's going to be higher. There's going to be inventory. As we start to get through that inventory, prices will start to escalate again. I saw this whole thing happen post the recession in 2008, 2009. I was fairly new in the business, and that was a different economic factor that caused that. You had the subprime mortgage crisis is kind of what drove that recession. And so it was really tough to get a mortgage for people back then, especially at the time I was working in the condo townhouse market, and getting financing for that was almost impossible. So it was a lot of rentals. But we had inventory, like 2011, 2012, we had inventory as a market here. And then the buyer demand came back. The mortgage, borrowing process eased up a little bit. And then it was just like a run. I remember the first time I really saw multiple offer situations where You're like, wait, this house has 6 offers? Like, how's that even possible?
Yeah.
We just came from a point where, half the things we were doing were short sales. And so...
Meanwhile, now we're like, you want us to move a wall? Okay.
Yeah,
just
right.
bring us a contract.
You want us to add a story? No problem.
Yeah, no problem. You want a pool? Cool.
Yeah,
Let's
we'll
do that.
Yeah. So I think it's just, that's where I kind of lay is try to find the immediate short-term solution that solves your immediate problem, but don't lose your eye, don't lose the perspective of where we're going to be a year from now.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not categorically different. Maybe it is. But I think, being a cyclical, seasonal type of business, I think you trend to these times when okay, we're going to expect it to be busier here. What are we prepping ourselves to be prepared for that?
Yeah.
What challenges are we going to encounter in a year? So that's kind of where I live in that part.
Basically taking some of the time of maybe the slower time to build more foundation to improve your businesses and to be ready.
Be ready
for that when that time comes.
Right. And it's always a good opportunity.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's funny too, because just like you said, you were crazy busy and stressed during COVID because of the pace of the market. If I had to guess, you're probably just as busy now, but there's not as much of the tangent. It's a different busy.
It is.
Yeah. The busy now is like, before it was having to have the conversations with buyers. I'm so sorry we didn't get this one. Or you're going to have to, offer 200,000 over, and it's just kind of a deflated response from them, to now where you go into listing appointments with sellers and they say, oh, I want to list here. You're like, well, if
you're having to have conversations,
we want to set ourselves up for success. Here are the things I recommend. And most of the time that's a differing opinion on price.
It is. And I have had to get really comfortable with understanding going into it that if we don't see eye to eye, maybe we're not the right fit for each other, because I don't want to be in a position where I can't fulfill the job that I'm being hired to do. That's not in their best interest. It's not in my best interest.
Yeah. Nobody wants to not sell their home and do right by their client.
Exactly.
There probably are people out there, but if you're running a successful business and you operate from that perspective, every agent wants it to be a success.
For sure.
It's a partnership.
It is a partnership. Definitely. Jared, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
spilling all the tea today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
We spill a lot of the tea in the office anyway, but I'm so glad that you came.
All this tea was alleged, by the way.
Everything here is alleged. Except for his name is actually Jared Fleischer.
That's correct. It is. Yes.
And we are actually with Compass, not allegedly.
Yes.
Well, you're proof that the right leadership can transform not just agents' businesses, but, also provide a sounding board for those of us that need it, particularly when we're trying to keep one foot in front of the other in a market like today. If anyone wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way to do so?
Well, I think the best way would be to make sure you subscribe to this podcast. And absolutely send it to your friends.
Thank you, Jared.
But yeah, you can find me on. I wish I could say I was like an Insta person. I'm not, so I don't have a handle, so to speak. But if you just look me up, you can find me on Compass's website, and it's got my phone number. I'd love call. I take emails, but I like to get phone calls.
Yeah, it's nice.
So I would say,
it's
just call me.
It's a rarity these days.
It is. It honestly is.
Well, like Jared said, to everybody that's listening, if you enjoyed this, definitely share it with your fellow agents that are struggling right now. If they just need a little bit of, insight as to what Jared thinks might happen in the market, or maybe even just some inspiration to just continue to put one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely.
Or maybe you're unhappy with where you are and you're looking for a badass sales manager also. Just saying.
That's too kind of you.
Just saying.
That's alleged also.
That's not alleged, actually. But remember, guys, real talk, real tea, real stories, unapologetically told, because you can't make magic in beige lighting. They wanted tea, but you gave them bubbles because you're champagne friend. Until next time, stay fabulous, stay fearless, and always spill it like it is.
That's a wrap on this episode of Real to the Tea, where we served the real, spilled the tea, and left you with that motivational magic on top. If you laughed, gasped, or shouted same at any point, hit that subscribe button, drop a review, and share it with your ride or die. Follow Amanda on Instagram at Amanda Rupley, and catch the unfiltered visuals at Real to the Tea on YouTube and the Gram.